Alright, so got another video. It's about dip switches. Woo! Oh my gosh. So you know how the transceiver has a set of dip switches, right? And remember how the numbers on the top, when you add them up, get you the number that you're looking for. Like if you're trying to set up your Wi-Fi channel, then those were the dip switches that you want to get to channel 9. You would do 1 and 8. If you want 12, you do 8 and 4. That kind of thing. Well, this is like an FYI video, but dip switches, they work the same. The only thing is like, so you know how our uplights have that display, and you could press the buttons and you could set up the DMX address and da 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 da. Well, back in the day, in terms of retro lighting, you had to set up your DMX address by dip switches. Dip switches are a lot more complicated, if that's a word I could use. They're a little more tedious. You could probably notice like the 4 switches here. If you've ever worked with the switches hands-on, you know that it could be somewhat difficult to lift certain switches. I mean, the ones we lift are on the edges, so it's a little easier, but switches in the middle, you used to have to use like a tool. There was a tool, I forget, it was like a wrench or something, but it was like a tool that helped you grab the switch you want to move, because some people would accidentally hit more than one because their finger were too thick or something like that. So it was a tedious task, and thank God for those displays. You could just press a button to get to your address. But our strobes have the dip switches. So I want to go ahead and explain to you what dip switches usually are meant for. They're meant to set DMX addresses. Okay, now the dip switches on the Wi-Fi transceiver obviously do the Wi-Fi channel, which is related to DMX in a way, but it's not quite DMX. This is how DMX was before, we started getting all fancy with these cute little displays. So, what you would do is you would get to your fixture, and it works the same way. So all the dip switches are labeled, right? And then up top you see there's a chart, and the chart has numbers on top of those numbers, and when you add those numbers up, you get the DMX address that you're looking for. Okay, so this looks like it takes 2 universes, because I'm pretty sure if you add all of the numbers up from 256 onward, you get 512, which is 2 universes. So I'm not gonna do all the math, but I'm pretty sure that's where you're going. Yes. Anyway, so basically what's going on here is that if you want to use this fixture with DMX, you would have to know how to do the dip switches. Now, in the past, when we did like That's Someone, oh dear God, we used the knobs, okay? And so we never used these strobes with DMX, but they are DMX compatible. But you would have to learn how to use this. So in the event that we use the strobes with DMX, it's a good idea to, make sure that we know how to do this. Plus, I want to give a dip switch lesson so you won't get confused with dip switches here. They are not quite the same thing, but if you notice, I really want you to pay attention here. So you notice the top 4 says 1, 2, 4, 8. Well, the first 4 here, it also says 1, 2, 4, 8. So in lighting, dip switches, it's all kind of universal. So you should not see different combinations. They should all basically be the same. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use our board. I've got it connected and everything. I'm going to turn this on. Right now we're on address 1. Okay. And that was a flash. Okay. So, what are we doing? So in order to get the best out of your fixture, obviously you want to make sure that the switch, the address is set. So if we want to start on channel 1 or address 1, we should only have to move the first dip switch up, and then we should be able to get our stuff. Fixture 2 starts at address 5, so we want to get to 5 on our chart here, which is dip switch 1 and dip switch 3, which is address 1 and address 4, which would get us 5. I mean, yes, 5. And fixture 2 would give us that control once again. Okay. Fixture 3 starts at address 9. So we have 5 up right now. Let's take down the 3, or the 4, and put up the 8, which is the 4th one. So it's address 9, which is pretty much like the transceiver. We do 9 on the transceiver. So fixture 3 should give us what we need. Okay, so you get the idea. So I mean, I can keep going. Our control only can get us to 32 as the maximum amount of channels that we have on here. So I would want to get to 31 if I want to use fixture 8. Okay, so fixture 8, 31, which just so happens to be dip switches 1 through 5 are all up in order to get 31, which is right under 32. Thought that was kind of interesting. So 31 is this fader here. It should be. There you go. So that's how you would do addressing with the dip switches. Now, if you're confused about what I was doing with these buttons, I already did a video with this quite a while ago. So if you still don't understand how these buttons work, jeez. That's like not good because you should have known. But yeah. So if we ever end up in the place where we're using this stuff with DMX, now you know how to use the dip switches, and you have an understanding of how these numbers relate to one another. It's the same as what we were doing with the transceiver, just on a bigger scale, essentially. That's why I wanted to have this as a guest star in our video. But for the most part, it's really straightforward. It's really not that complicated. And just FYI, 10 needs to be up if you're going to use DMX. Dip switch 10 equals off. But basically, if it's on, then you can use DMX. You see how as soon as I move 10 down, the DMX signal went out? When I bring 10 back up, if I can get, there we go, then the light comes back on. And when it's off, that's the only way you can use these knobs to do what we've been doing before. So, and just to emphasize that, DMX power is back on. We can no longer use these. As you can see, nothing happens. So, that's just an FYI. Let me know if you have. It's like turning off the wireless switch on the uplight. Even if the DMX is set, if you turn off that switch, nothing's gonna work anyway. It's kind of the same thing. Just give you something to think about. But yeah, so that is about it for this video using dip switches. Most of the lighting that we're going to be getting in the future, most lighting doesn't use dip switches anymore. It's kind of an ancient thing that just kind of goes to show you how old these fixtures are. But we decided to. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, you're not going to see dip switches a lot anymore in the near future. Oh, in the future. But we have them, so it's a good idea to know how to use them. And it's a refresher on how to use the dip switches on the transceiver as well. So if you have any questions about any dip switch stuff, let me know. If you have any questions about DMX in general, let me know. Because DMX is like, put it like this: you guys using DMX is not, it's common, but it's also something that a lot of professionals don't want to do. A lot of professionals prefer using master slave mode and standalone mode. Standalone mode is basically what the fixtures are doing right now, where you know how you can individually go inside of each fixture and make it do whatever. That's called standalone. There's no control. It just stands alone and does whatever it wants to do, whatever you tell it to do. So there's no RFC. There's no master slave. None of that. It's just sitting there, doing whatever it's doing. So a lot of professionals and lighting personnel and DJs and things like that, they there's a nice handful that don't want to use DMX because they're scared of DMX, and I think a lot of it has to do with the dip switch being part of the issue back in the day. Now it's becoming more convenient. It's becoming easier to use um, DMX simply because you don't have to worry about doing the math. I think people don't like math, so then they get scared of adding up the numbers on the dip switches. I don't know. I mean, obviously with the display, you don't have to think. You just press up, down until you get to where you want to be, which is pretty easy and simple. But you are in a generation that uses DMX. There's a lot that do not prefer to use it. They just don't want to. So it's technology, you know. Obviously, we're going wireless. There are a lot of people that I've worked with, like Miss Arlene, who do not want to do wireless DMX. She wants everything wired still, you know. So it's every generation is just gonna have their preference of what they want to use. So, all right. I hope this helps. Keep shining.